Hi, everyone. This is Dane Dormio, and today I am really excited to be sharing with you a conversation with Master Tary. Yep. How are you doing, Tary?
Oh, fine, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Dane. Nice talking to you and hopefully everybody else
Yeah,
watching.
great. Thank you. Um, I I'm going to try to be as brief as possible with your introduction, but there's a lot to say here, so this is as brief as I can get it. For those members of our audience who don't know Terry so far, he is the inheritor of a multi-generational family kung fu tradition, as well as a lineage holder in multiple styles of Tai Chi, including Sun style, Yang style, and Wudang sword style. His great grandfather was one of the most famous praying mantis teachers in Hong Kong, and Terry began his training as a teenager in Xingyian praying mantis. He's studied for over 20 years with Grandmaster Li Dayin, and he and his wife Fei are co-founders of the Dayin Taiji Chuan Institute, which is a nonprofit community-based organization dedicated to the promotion of health and well-being through Tai Chi, and it's an organizational member of the British Council for Chinese Martial Arts and the Tai Chi Union for Great Britain. As you can no doubt tell by his accent, he's based in the UK. He has extensive experience judging international martial arts and Tai Chi competitions, and his network of friends includes many Tai Chi teachers around the world, so maybe some of them will be listening to this. He
Hopefully,
travels,
yes.
hopefully, yeah, hopefully. He travels regularly to conduct seminars in many countries, including the US, as well as Spain, Germany, Ireland, Australia, China, and his students include many national Tai Chi gold medal champions in the UK. Along with his wife, he's also a co-founder of the British Health Qigong Association, as well as its vice president. And his other positions include being a technical consultant and master instructor for the Spanish Dayin Taiji Chuan Institute, chairman of the British branch of the Wudang Wushu Association and the Sport Association of the UK Chinese Business Confederation, and chief judge of the British National Tai Chi Championships and the Tai Chi Union Championships. I'm I'm probably speaking pretty fast. There's a lot to fit in here, and his wife Faye has an equally impressive background and list of accomplishments. And together, they're some of the UK's most tireless and impactful promoters and popularizers of the benefits of Tai Chi and Qigong, as well as the proud parents of Kasha, who is diligently studying to carry on the family tradition of general badassery. In addition to their nonprofit efforts, the couple's entrepreneurial achievements include Tai Chi Travel, which organizes educational and sightseeing trips to China for groups from around the world, and Tai Chi Link, a comprehensive retailer of Tai Chi and martial arts equipment, informational products, and cultural gifts. So there's a lot there that I feel is going to be significant for our listeners, and a lot of really interesting stuff to talk about. So that's why I feel like I have to cram all that stuff in because um,
It's very detailed. You've done a lot of research.
yeah,
Well
I
done.
and um, and it's just really apparent that that you are a tireless promoter of health, wellness, and longevity through Tai Chi and Qigong. You really have done a lot in different areas to bring more Tai Chi to the world, and that's something that is a really big inspiration for me, and I know it's a big inspiration for a lot of other people as well. And one of
Thank
the you're welcome. One of the themes of this podcast is how Tai Chi can transform the world. So
you.
I like to highlight examples of ways that people um, are spreading these practices and improving the lives of people all over the world. So maybe just that as a general theme would be a good place to start about uh, what do you see as Tai Chi's role in changing the world, and what do you see as your role in that movement?
I think the most important thing is in the last 100 years, the role of Tai Chi has changed from purely a martial art to defend oneself and slowly move on to an exercise that helps people to build up better health and better living standard, and in a way psychological well-being as well. So I think, you know, in the we will have to look at Tai Chi from a totally different angle. 100 years ago, my obviously four masters, they all learned Tai Chi for one main reason was to defend themselves. But then they found over the years, not just themselves benefit from as a good way of defending themselves, but also health-wise, they become much better in health, and also living a better living standard life as when they practice Tai Chi. So when they pass on to students, they don't just simply pass on students who just simply do martial arts for fighting. A lot of the people who practice Tai Chi even 100 years ago were bankers, and in China they were royals and very highly educated scholars. And they all had one reason, because obviously they are not really learning it for health, for fighting. They were learning it for health. So I think that the Tai Chi is starting to shift more towards the health benefit for people rather than simply just a fighting art. And I think, you know, this is something that we need to promote tirelessly, because even in the UK, I remember like 30 years ago when I started teaching in the UK, and if I was to tell a doctor to say, oh, I teach Tai Chi for health, can I put a poster in your practice to also encourage your patients to learn? And the doctor would turn around and say to us, he say, look, you know, I don't believe in this sort of thing. And they would just turn us away. But now the doctors actually recommend the students to go say, look, I have this problem, doctor. And the doctor say, yes, no problem, go and do some Tai Chi or Qigong. So I think Tai Chi is starting to bring a lot more influences to the daily life of people. And I think we need to embrace that in such a way that more and more people can benefit the actual practice of Tai Chi. And in China, I'm not sure if you've been to China yourself, Dane. In China, if you go to the parks in the morning, any parks in China, you will see not just 10, 20 people. You will see hundreds of people in the park doing all sorts of things. But one very common thing is quite a lot of them are, in fact, quite a high percentage of them are practicing Tai Chi. And a lot of them range from like their 40s to the 80s. And, you know, they're all doing it. They spend 2-3 hours each day practicing Tai Chi. And in China, it becomes a problem, in fact, is people living much longer. And a lot of them be attributed to the practice of Tai Chi. But again, you know, it just absolutely, yeah. In China, I mean, like, it was amazing. They were saying, oh, you know, we have a problem. People live longer. But however, they still promote Tai Chi as a health exercise because they want people to live longer, happier, and much sort of a healthier life. And in the West, people, although Tai Chi is growing quite fast and it's become more and more, you can say, dominant in a sense in the health industry in a sense, but there are still a lot of people not knowing that Tai Chi can really help them. So I think there is still a lot of work to do, and Tai Chi will, in a way, eventually help, hopefully, all the people in the world, not just a small group of people.
I want to touch on one thing that you mentioned about China. I actually have lived in China for a little over a year, and I observed this phenomenon that you're talking about. And just to share a quick impression about it, I actually my impression was that the perception of Tai Chi in China, especially among the kids, is it's something old people do, and the young people aren't really interested in it at all. But what you said about Tai Chi moving more in the direction of health wellness, health and wellness practice, that's actually, my impression isn't that that's something that is starting or accelerating. That's something that is kind of old news. It seems like Tai Chi, as long as it's been in the West, pretty much has been that. And there's in if you want to find Tai Chi for health and wellness, that's very, very easy. If you want to find Tai Chi for practical self-defense, that's relatively rare. And
That's right, yeah.
and it raises a question that is of interest to me, and I know a lot of other people as well. Is what is the value or importance of preserving the martial aspects of Tai Chi, or is that really that crucial?
I think it is very important, because if you look at the makeup of Tai Chi, and then we'll know that it's vital that we keep that martial heritage within that system alone itself. Now, because Tai Chi was created originally as a martial art, all the movements in Tai Chi were combat movements. However, because of the principles behind the practice, which was to increase your, your combat ability by driving that internal. Therefore, when you practice Tai Chi, not just simply how to actually use the applications, but you need to know how to use the internal strength in cooperation with the applications. Now, nowadays, I think a lot of people say, well, I'm doing the health side, so I can forget about the martial aspects. I think that is wrong, because without knowing or understand the movements, without understanding the martial applications behind the movements, you would really not able to achieve the best, you can say, benefits can offer, simply because of the application and the internal energy that they coincide, you can say, correlate with each other. So I think it is important to understand the applications and keeping that martial heritage. Now the question is, does a person need to learn Tai Chi as a martial art? I think the development of Tai Chi is, in the last 100 years, it's developed into three sort of directions. One direction is obviously, as we've been talking about, health and wellness, which is becoming like really, really big, in not just simply in China, but all over the world. We need to embrace that. However, it also branch out into two other things. Number one is the martial sense, which has been around for the 400 years. That's what Tai Chi was originally created for. However, nowadays, as you rightly said, less and less people learn Tai Chi as a martial art. It's simply because, I think it's because of when Tai Chi came to the West, the impression that people had, and because it's being gentle but very slow, and people think, oh, that's good for health. And obviously the teachers will always emphasize that too. So people automatically feel that Tai Chi was just simply for health and wellness. However, if people starting to look more, then they realize all these applications are very practical. So you just need to learn it slightly differently. And in a way, for older people, it may be difficult for them to actually have a combat sort of practice with other person. So therefore, what I personally would do to my students is, or my instructors is, when I teach them, I will emphasize on the health issues, the health aspects. However, I will explain to them about the applications. And then what I would do is, then I would look at the practitioners, the age. If they are slightly older, then I will ask them to do a little bit gentler, so that they don't really get themselves hurt. But when they're younger, then I will try to get them to do a bit more energetic, and then try to a bit more, in a way, aggressive in learning the applications. So in a way, applications is important, and that cannot be overlooked. And a lot of people nowadays teaching Tai Chi tend to overlook that part.
Well, that raises...
The third thing...
Oh, I'm sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
sorry.
What's the third thing?
The third one is competitions. Yeah. A lot of people find, oh, competitions, why Tai Chi has to compete. And I think it is absolutely important, because by competing, number one is an environment where all the like-minded people come together. So you can actually share your knowledge, share your understanding of Tai Chi. And secondly is, by competing, you actually doing the sets or whatever, or pushing hands, whatever you're doing, then you can actually learn about yourself and the other people. and also you can understand how well you have achieved in your practice. So in a way, Tai Chi now has gone to 3 branches, I would suggest to name it. Number 1 is for health, number 2 is for combat, number 3 for competitions. So how people pick is entirely up to them. However, whichever they pick, they should not really leave the combat, at least the application or the understanding of application behind. Because without the understanding of the applications, then the whole practice become a conventional, for example, like gym exercise, or as we sometimes describe it as waving your hands about.
Well, I really appreciate that you point out those 3 different tracks: health, wellness, combat, and competition, and specifically that making the distinction between combat applications and competition, because I think for a lot of people that distinction might not be as obvious. And the question this raises for me is, because certainly it's competitions are a very popular thing, and that style of training is relatively easy to find. But if one were interested in in training with a combat for combat purposes, with a self-defense emphasis for practical self-defense skills, how does that, assuming one can find a teacher who does that, how does that look? How does that work? Because you mentioned with the way that with your students, you emphasize the health aspects, and then you explain the applications. And this is this is actually something that is a pretty common model. And what I think of when I think of the martial applications of Tai Chi is usually, I mean, what most people think of as Tai Chi is the form. You memorize this form, and this form is this style, and this form is this style. And people learn I do Tai Chi, if they're a Tai Chi person, 98% of the time, the first question out of their mouth is, what style? So, right, yeah. So people think Tai Chi is the form, is the style, and combat applications equates to, okay, see this movement from the form, you could be hitting somebody in the head with this, or you could be hitting somebody in the groin with this. And that's sort of the intellectual, the combat application. But to actually train it in an embodied way, to make it spontaneous and adaptable and fluid and something that you're able to actually use, how does that training look, or what elements are there apart from just memorizing the forms are there that make it a combat practice? Yeah.
Now, I think nowadays, because a lot of people have this perception is like, you rightly said that, memorizing the movements, learning the movements, they think that then they can become a combat master in a way. But unfortunately, in the real world, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. And in the past, even when we were younger, when we were practicing, we always learn the applications, and then sometimes we'll have a mess about or play about or have a spar with the partners. Now, one of the very fundamental importance in, you can say, martial arts is not just simply learning the form, but you're also learning a lot of other things. So you don't actually just keep learning the applications, because a lot of basic training goes in with it. And I think nowadays, a lot of people who practice Tai Chi, they tend to sort of overlook the importance of basic foundation training. I mean, I practice Xing Yi Chuan, and as you already mentioned, I practice praying mantis. And we spend probably 3/4 of our practice time to doing a lot of conditioning, basic trainings, hardening of the body. And some people may say, well, I do Tai Chi, I use 4 ounces of forces to overcome a ton of forces. Unfortunately, sometimes you don't actually use that all the time. And therefore, you need to have a certain physique in order to be able to, in a sense, combat efficient. And it is, I think it is misleading to tell people, say, if you are 100 pounds in weight and you're going to fight a guy 600 pounds, and all you have to do is just to use your 4 ounce of forces. And I think that is misleading, because you may get that 100-pound person injured quite badly. Yeah. So therefore, this person, if he wants to practice Tai Chi as a martial art, then the first thing he needs to understand is he needs to put in a lot of time to do conditioning. Now, in ancient Tai Chi books or Tai Chi teaching by the masters, they don't just teach you, say, do the form and then do a bit of applications and that's it. They would ask you to do the same as other martial arts: horse stances, punching, kicking, and then heart conditioning exercises, in order to strengthen your body, so that you can, in a way, like boxing, you can withstand a certain degree of punching, a certain degree of kicking, because no way you can say, I can block every single move from other person if you're in real combat. So therefore, if you can't withstand a simple punch, and then don't worry, no need to talk about any other martial art applications, because one punch you're gone, and that's it, you know. So therefore, I think it is important for people who practice Tai Chi as a martial art. The first thing they need to do is they must practice it like a martial art, which means that all the basic trainings, all the stretching, all the press-ups even, or weightlifting if they have to, in order to strengthen the body, number one. And number two is obviously the skills. Now, you mentioned a very good word, spontaneous. How do we respond? You can say without even thinking. And I think this is through practice. The more you practice, I mean, that's why martial arts has a lot of drills. And this drills is really to get your body into that sort of set mindset, or the body in itself become a mindset. Every move that comes into you, your body becomes natural and automatic. And without actually practice over and over and over again, you will never get to that stage of spontaneous response. You can't respond spontaneously without actually a lot of practice. It's just like driving. We go to learn to drive. The first thing is we have to worry about how to look at the mirror, and then when do we change gear, and when do we clutch in, and when do we brake, and when do we accelerate. That is when you start practice. But practice and practice and practice. Then nowadays, I'm sure a lot of people, if you ask them a question, they probably can't answer you. It's like they may be driving home from work, and they be thinking about the work beforehand, or they may be thinking about what they have for dinner, but then suddenly they arrive home. So this is spontaneous. So what we want to do is the same thing as we do in Tai Chi. Is like you practice, you keep practicing, and then when you get to a certain level, have a little sparring with your partners. Use the applications to try to spar with your partners and practice. And then over time, your body will become naturally responding to any movement that comes at you. But these cannot be practiced just simply doing a form.
So if I can try to summarize what you were just explaining, I think I would say you're saying that for training Tai Chi as a martial art, the forms sort of work for conditioning certain movement patterns into the body, and then you also have to include physical conditioning, calisthenic type exercise, strength, endurance, flexibility, that sort of thing, just like all other martial arts. And then you also need to incorporate what you said is sort of a mess about, a play about, sort of spontaneous movement training with partners.
Hello.
Hey,
sorry, it's on off. Yes. Okay.
What I heard you saying is that the form is there to kind of train in movement patterns. And then you also have to include conditioning in the form of calisthenics, strength training, endurance, range of motion, that sort of thing, like any other martial art. And then you also have to incorporate an element of spontaneous play about or mess about, like you said, with with partners, for it to be a complete martial practice.
Absolutely, yes. I think that is very important, especially for younger people. If they want to practice Tai Chi as a martial art, then all these elements of training needs to be included. And it is wrong to tell people, say, okay, if you come to my class and do a few forms and then learn a few applications or techniques, then you become a fighter. You go out, and sometimes I actually, especially elderly people, I would say to them, I say, look, you understand the applications is to help you practice your forms better. If you're doing it for health, then great, because then you can use these applications or visualizing these applications to drive the internal energy through the body in order to, in a way, cultivate the energy. So to get better health and well-being. However, for using it as a combat or self-defense, then this is important that we understand that's not enough. We need to do more in order to build up that strength, and also the spontaneous reaction, you can say, through more practice, more play about with partners.
That's great. Yeah, that's a really great perspective to hear. There's a couple of things that I want to make sure to dig into while we have time today, and specifically, I know you have a couple of businesses, Tai Chi Travel and Tai Chi Link, which I mentioned, and I'm going to include the links for those in the show notes. But I want to talk specifically about World Tai Chi Day this year, April 28th, 2018. What plans do you have, and what are you looking forward to this year?
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Well, actually, in the last probably like say 7-8 years, we've been doing Tai Chi, you know, obviously in the parks, in different premises, on World Tai Chi Qigong Days, and because our organization in the UK, we have more than like 60 instructors throughout the UK, and we have some instructors in Europe as well, including in Denmark, Norway, France, Spain, obviously Germany as well. So what we do is we synchronize each other on the World Health Qigong Days, Tai Chi and Qigong Days, and some of them will be going to local parks, bringing the students along, and then obviously advertise local papers and get people who don't do Tai Chi to come along to the park and then spend probably an hour or two practicing Tai Chi and Qigong. And I think it's a very good way, because then you actually promote Tai Chi in a much bigger sort of environment, in attracting more people. And some of our instructors also go to different establishments, like for example, like we call it the NHS in the UK, which is the health system, the hospital system. And what some of them would do is to go to the NHS and go to certain departments, for example, people who's recovering from operations, or people with, you know, long-term illnesses, for example, like MS, or, you know, chronic fatigue syndrome, this sort of problems. They go to the hospitals and spend like an hour or two doing exercise with them, to, in a way, to give them an idea of what Tai Chi can help them with. And every year we actually synchronize more or less the same time in the day, for example, like 11 o'clock in the morning, then we all start.
So your organization has you have instructors throughout Europe, and you kind of coordinate this umbrella of events that are all in public parks,
absolutely,
for that day. And
yes,
as
and
well
also, as I say, you know, in health establishments as well.
Yeah,
because
well
I think that's
outreach hospitals.
That's right. Yes.
That's great. Well,
so we make it really big.
You make it what?
We make it really big.
Yeah, that's so inspiring and exciting. I love World Tai Chi Day because I'm involved with organizing events in San Diego, and World Tai Chi Day has its sort of official purpose, and I have my own specific variation of that for the San Diego event. When I invite people, I let them know the purposes are to help spread the benefits of Tai Chi, Qigong, integrative Tai healing practices as widely as possible, and to participate in a global wave of health and healing that is taking place all over the planet on that day, and to help unite the community of practitioners locally and around the world. So I just get so much excitement and inspiration hearing about everything that different groups are doing around the world. And
I think Tai Chi and Qigong Day in Europe is really, really big in the last 5 years. And most of my friends and my students, they're all doing it. They're all doing Tai Chi and Qigong. They may not do it exactly the same day. Some of them doing a week before or week after if they can't manage to do it on the same day. But it is becoming really, really popular. I think it is also, as you rightly said, it is a good way, a fantastic way of promoting health, wellness to people through this day, really, Tai Chi and Qigong Day.
And another part of it that I'm looking forward to this year is the 24 Hours of World Peace live webcast hosted by David Dorian Ross. He's done it the last 2 years, and I'm hoping he's doing it this year, trusting that he's doing it this year. It's a 24-hour live stream on Facebook from all the different events that as the time zone rolls around. And so that's something that there's a Facebook page for 24 Hours of World Peace. That's what it's called. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure people know what's the best way to interface with you on the web. Is it a website or a Facebook page, or what would you suggest people do to learn about your work?
Well, we do actually have 2 websites. As you say, the Douyin Tai Chi Chuan Institute website and the British Health Qigong website. So if anybody who are interested in knowing more about, what we do and what Tai Chi is good for them, or the health Qigong that we promote, then they can visit the site. I mean, is it okay for me to name them?
Yeah, and I'll actually include the Dane one in the show notes as well. But it's the Dane Tai Chi Chuan Institute.
That's right, the Douyin Tai Chi Chuan Institute. And if they want to contact me or the organization, they can always email me on Tary at douyin-taichi.com, or obviously info@douyin-taichi.com. And I'm sure we'll get back to them straight away as soon as they email us. And also, if anybody who wants to know more about, any other things or wanting any advice on Tai Chi practice, then they're welcome to actually contact me too.
That's amazing. That's really generous of you. The Dane Tai Chi Chuan Institute is, again, a nonprofit organization. I'll also include the websites for Tai Chi Travel and Tai Chi Link. And just one final question. Do you have any books out?
Not at the moment, no. We are planning to do some books, but obviously because of the traveling and teaching and also the videoing, and we do have some DVDs, which mainly on my father-in-law, Professor Lee De-yin, and my wife, but we're looking to actually bring out a series of different teaching on DVDs. And we're also looking to the possibility of doing online teaching as well, like what we're doing now, Zoom. And this is something that I just discovered and still trying to work out how it works. And hopefully through this interview, I'm hoping to learn a bit more of how to use it. And then maybe in future, I can be doing some online teaching with enthusiasts in the US.
Well, I'm really pleased to hear that. And I very much bless and support your work and your efforts in getting more of these teachings out to the world. I'm really grateful for everything that you're putting out, and I'm really glad to support or help with that in any way that I can.
Thank you very much.
I always like to leave open the possibility of a future discussion, and there's a lot more that we could dig into. A lot of questions I'm actually really excited to ask you that we just haven't had time for today. So I'll look forward to a follow-up conversation sometime, and look forward to seeing your materials as they come out. So Tary, it's been an absolute pleasure. I want to give you my gratitude, and I know this is going to be really, really valuable for all of our watchers and listeners. So thank you on everyone else's behalf.
Thank you too. It's my pleasure. I look forward to talking to you again, Dane, and hopefully talk to people who are watching it as well.
Good. Yeah, I will look forward to being in touch soon.
Okay, you take care.
You too. Bye, Tary.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye bye.